So I'm very excited to introduce our next speaker, who will give, I think, wonderful insight into an area that we've all experienced, but perhaps not thought too much about. Have you ever wondered why you spontaneously sing a little jingle while you're driving in your car, something that you might have heard on the radio or TV? Why do you buy some things and not other things? Do you ever think of that? And let me say with a little fear and trembling, and I do mean that, why do we believe the things that we do about God? Have we made God into a kind of brand, like we do with soaps and cars and clothing and maybe even pizza? Alfred Pirozzoli, our next speaker, is a graduate of the Paier College of Art and is currently the creative director of Pirozzoli and Williams. And he's going to try to answer questions related to advertising. And he's well prepared to examine exactly this area. He has been recognized with many awards of creative excellence and has worked with many large corporations to enable their growth. Al is also tireless. He has served as a volunteer pastor for Walnut Hill Church and written 3 books. I believe they're e-books, if I have that correct. And he can tell you perhaps a little bit more about them. Would you join me in welcoming Al Pirozzoli as he examines what is truth, a perspective from the advertising profession? Al?
Thank you, John. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Al Pirozzoli, and I'm a Christian. Amen. Before I get into this, I'm going to be actually talking about the truth about you from the perspective of advertising. But I want to remind you of something. This morning you woke up to an advertised alarm clock. You pulled back some advertised sheets. You slipped your feet into advertised slippers. You walked into the bathroom and picked up advertised soap, advertised shampoo, and you took a shower. You came out and you picked up advertised toothpaste and mouthwash. Then you went to your wardrobe and you picked up clothes that were advertised somewhere along the line. Shirts, labels on the shirts, the pants. You slipped on shoes that were advertised. You went into the kitchen and you grabbed a box of advertised cereal or some other breakfast food that was advertised. You said hello to your kids who were in advertised clothes, advertised backpacks. And you went down to the garage, you got in the car that was advertised. You turned on a radio that was an advertised radio station, preferably FIF. And you drove to work in a company that was advertised in terms of the job you got there. Everything you did yesterday and you'll do today has some linkage to advertising. Advertising is a very powerful medium. Now, what's important about advertising is that it energizes daily life. It communicates information to us. And it not only does that, it informs us. There's some things about advertising that are very positive, and there's some things about advertising that are not so positive. But it does also sustain this idea that the truth about who we really are is affected and implicated and assimilated through advertising, branding, marketing, which is a very serious matter. Advertising basically communicates products. It promotes a cause and a purpose, and it persuades. It tries to persuade you to a method of thinking, a brand of product or service. It's trying to sway you and move you. And it functions in perception. It functions in perception of truth. In other words, advertising works on this premise. We want to get you to believe something so that you believe that it's true, whether it's true or not, and we want you to be persuaded of it so you'll take an action, which is a purchase, or buy into a thought, or a worldview. Advertising comes in many forms. Some of the earlier people you saw who are anti-Christian are using advertising through word of mouth and through credentials. It's the same thing. It doesn't have to be an ad. Advertising permeates your life every day in many, many, many ways. And it's very, very powerful. Now, I want to say I've made my living in the advertising field for 30 years. It's not a bad business. There's some wonderful things about advertising. You wouldn't know this conference existed if there wasn't for advertising. You wouldn't know the schools that are available. You wouldn't know where to go shopping without it. Someone's got to give you information. And advertising does that, and it can do it very well, and it can do it in a very positive way. So essentially, advertising is a tool like any other tool. If I have a hammer, I have a tool in my hand, and I can do damage with it or I cannot do damage with it. It depends on how I use the tool. So advertising in itself, we have to remember, is a tool. It depends on how you use that tool. And advertising really goes to the heart of this question. It's probably the most important question that you'll ever ask, and it was asked by someone named Pontius Pilate. He said to Jesus after a dissertation, "What is truth?" For him, truth was whatever was expedient for him to achieve his own goals as a governor. And would keep him popular, keep him from having problems with Caesar. He placated the Jewish people, he placated everybody. And the reason why is if he couldn't keep his own governance under control, Caesar would remove him. So he was always looking for things in his bed. What is truth? Truth is what's good for me and what's relevant to me and what's going to help me meet my goals and my objectives. That's Pilate. And standing right next to him was, of course, the truth. And he couldn't even see it. So truth in many ways is expedient to what is good for you as an individual or a company, what is expedient to create your goals and meet your goals, whether you're a corporation or an individual. Now, I'm going to just briefly talk about this because from the perspective of Christianity, we do know what truth is. God is truth, and God and truth are identical. And when you look through this list, it just seems so obvious to us that truth exists because God exists. It's unchangeable, it's eternal, it's spiritual, it's superior to the human mind. Truth is reality. Now, earlier people said, well, how do you know Jesus exists? You heard that on the video and some other things. Jesus said, I'm the truth, the way, and the life. Just a quick aside here. Here is a very good apologetic for that question. How do you know Jesus is the Christ? Why isn't it Muhammad? How about Buddha? As a new Christian many years ago, I had this question. I wanted to be sure as I could. Why shouldn't I follow Buddha? I mean, being a Buddhist is easy. There's no accountability. So I put all these guys on a chart. I did this. Buddha, Muhammad, Lao Tse, you name them. All the, let's say, not alien guys, but people that had some reasonable idea about religion. And I asked this question. And this, I think, is very powerful. I think it's unassailable. I think it's very difficult to argue against this. I asked Buddha, I asked Lao Tse, I asked all of them this question. Were you pre-announced? No, Jesus, yes. Did it tell me thousands of years ago where you would be born? No, yes, Jesus. Did it tell me what you would teach thousands of years before you were born? No, yes. I went down this list. There was only one guy left standing. Jesus Christ. That's why I believe he's true. I think it's so simple, it's overwhelming. And it's powerful. Now back to advertising. Here is the first advertisement that ever existed. It's called perception-based truth. Did God say? I mean, did he really say that? Did he say it that way? Don't you want to be like God? What isn't he telling you, Adam? Did God say? Perception-based truth. Here we have the first consumers that bought something that they already possessed. You can be like God. Well, they already were like God. They had God's image, his likeness, his brilliance, his creativity. Astounding. But here's what happened. They already owned the Porsche. Someone comes along and says, hey, how would you guys like to buy a Porsche? Well, I already have one. No. You want to buy a Porsche. They were sold something they already had and that they were happy with. And this is the premise, I'm sad to say, of modern advertising and psychology in advertising. The larger agencies do employ psychologists. They have for years. They've explored subliminal advertising. I explored it once, and I stopped because I wanted to find out, is there something to subliminal advertising? Seeing images you can't see, just below the conscious threshold. They're working on all, you think the CIA's got stuff? I'm going to tell you something, it's just incredible. Why? Because they want you to buy. Why do they want you to buy? Because they have a next quarter profit that has to be met. They want to be the brand. They want to be the Gap and stay the Gap. They want to be McDonald's and still be the king of fast food. And they have stockholders to satisfy. And this drives men and women to do things they normally wouldn't do, which I've seen firsthand. It's very, very powerful. I got to tell you, I think this is the most astounding fact of all time that we purchased, our ancestors purchased something they already possessed, purchase-based truth. They went from supermodels. I mean, you want to talk about, people talk about supermodels. Adam and Eve, you want to talk about supermodels? They were B2, brilliant and beautiful. They had it all. Incredible intelligence, a one-on-one relationship with the king of this universe, the author of innovation, the king of ideas, every day. And they bought something that put them on the discount rack. On the discount rack. It's a shame. It's just an incredible shame. And advertising deals in this area. Truth divided by perception is what gives you perception-based truth, which is a downward spiral because you can never make the grade. And when you can never make the grade because you've been moved from supermodel status to the discount rack, you're looking for some way to get an identity. You're trying to find out, how can I have value as a human being? And the marketers and the branders and the advertisers who are unscrupulous understand this. And they've done something that is absolutely extraordinary, although not always very positive, because they understand that we've lost identity. They themselves have lost identity, so they're looking for the same identity they're trying to sell you and I. And it's a dog chasing its tail. You know the old saying, when the dog runs after the car, but the question is, what's he going to do with it if he catches it? You know, that's what this is. It's a chase. It's a paper chase to find value. So I'm not so much talking about advertising, because I'm going to transition shortly to this idea of the truth about you. The truth about you. So there's this thing called compensating for the loss that took place in the fall of man, perception-based truth. The first thing they did was we think they were fig leaves. They did something. They covered themselves. They covered themselves. And in today's society, unless you know the truth about you, you are still using fig leaves. They're just new. They're now called brands. Brands are the new fig leaves. Because brands can define you and they can give you perceived value. Marketers know this very well, and they play on this perception all the time. Something external will give you wholeness. Something external, some label, some particular watch, some, they're not Gucci's, some Gucci shoes, whatever. The car that's parked outside. The silk tie I might be wearing that you can't afford. They play on perception of truth. Something external will define us. Now, you see them for sale signs in those photographs. And you know, a for sale sign looks wonderful on a car. It looks wonderful in a store window. It looks wonderful at a tag sale. I mean, a for sale sign is just a wonderful thing, except when you put it on you. There's people walking around this planet with for sale signs on. What do I mean by that? They don't know who they are anymore. So they're for sale to the highest bidder. Is it the Brooks Brothers suit, the highest bidder? Is it the Gucci shoes? Is it a Mercedes? What is? And I'm not saying those things are bad in themselves. I'm talking about the perception of the person that needs them to extract value. That's what makes brands so powerful. So the continuation of the fall is the discount rack, and human value and its uniqueness is redefined through this perception that external things will give you internal value. If I'm well dressed in the right labels, the right watch, the right car, the right social club, all these things, then I'm going to sense value. And that's going to make me more valuable than you. I'm up here and you're down there. I don't even have to say it. If you have knowledge of clothing and fashion, you would know that so-and-so is wearing a particular suit or has particular cuffs or a particular watch. Doesn't have to say a word. Just the way the person walks in the room. You know, in a $1,500 Armani suit. Makes perception real to that person. But it's false. Now, there's so much I could have done here. I'm just going to do some quick things in terms of a tour. But keep in mind, I want to say this again, advertising is just a tool. It depends on how you use it. Advertising people are not bad. It depends on how they use the tools, like any other tool. Okay? But look at some of the things that... Look at the box on the left. There's 4 little kids. I mean, the thing is gigantic. When you take it out of the box, look at it. Incredible, huh? Look at this one. What you see is on the left. What you get is on the right. Now, you have to admit, if I had an ad and I showed you this beautiful ad in the magazine that showed the thing on the right, you say, what in the world is that thing? Is it edible? Oh, wait, you haven't seen nothing yet. Is that you, Julia? This is from an ad that the BBC ran, and they banned airbrushed ads because, I mean, she certainly is a beautiful woman. I'll never take that away from her. But look at what they've done to her. She's already beautiful. Well, now she's more beautiful. She doesn't have a line on her face. Recognize her? Reach your weight loss goals, but here's how advertising works. Fast. Reach your weight loss goals fast. And look at the name of the product. Quick Trim. Not you'll labor over 6 months trim. Quick Trim. Because no one's going to buy it. And not everybody's going to look at her. And she's been airbrushed, my friends. And some people don't have physical genes to make a body that looks like that. They may have shorter legs, or longer arms or shorter arms. But this is what they're selling you something. Charles Revson, Revlon Cosmetics, it's a famous phrase. He said to his people one time, he said, in our factory we make perfume. In the stores we sell hope. That's what you're looking at right there. And it's not new. Because look at this. These are old ads from the 30s. Good news for thousands of girls who have no sex appeal. And look at the answer. Gain 10 to 25 pounds quick. It said gain, not lose. Gain. You're too skinny. You're too heavy. You're too short. Put on high heels. Put lifts in your shoes. You have no hair. Get an implant. Your smile's not nice. Get implants. There's a remedy. If there's a pill for everything, there's a remedy for everything. It's just changing the perception of who we are. Look at the other one. Spot reducer, electric spot take off excess weight. Don't stay fat. You can lose pounds and inches safely. This is the 30s. Now you saw the first ad. It was Adam and Eve got the first ad. And it just continues on and on. They're selling the same old junk and people still buy it. Because they're trying to add value to who they are because they don't know who they are anymore. Because they're on the discount rack. Beautiful people. It's all about branding. Look at this. Beautiful people and beautiful poses, and they're supposed to sensory affect you, so you'll want to buy these things because you'll be like that. You'll be in that photograph if you buy these things. It's about affinity, association. It's about projection. It's about belonging. Brands are about belonging. And they have been very, very successful in selling this perception-based truth. And of course, brands are not just product brands like a Mercedes logo, Tiger Woods, you name them. They are living logos, living brands that sell products by the millions because they endorse them. Celebrities, human beings, have become brands unto themselves. If you want to play golf like Tiger Woods, then you should be wearing Nike clothes and Nike shoes, a certain kind of a club. Now, he doesn't actually say that, but what's the perception? If he's got the Nike logo on, he's using Nike clubs, and he's got, what is the association there? What's the projection? I want to have the same thing. This one will blow your mind. On the left is a Patek Philippe watch. It's $60,000. On the right is a Casio you could buy at Walmart for $60. Which one keeps better time? The Casio keeps better time. $60. But see, no one's going to be impressed when I do this and you see my Casio as opposed to, and it's a Philippe, because someone says, boy, that costs more than my house. And that's what they want to do. Because, why? Because when you say that about me, this is not a Philippe. I wish I had one. I don't. But the point is, it's perception. It's bringing value to me from an external source. And you can never have lasting value from an external source. Never. It's just not possible. But everybody would like to have the Philippe. Who wouldn't want to have a watch? And the theme here is, I have one and you don't. You can't afford one. My watch costs more than your car. I met a guy in a meeting once, in a business meeting, who was so full of, this is true, was so full of himself, he actually said to this person that left the room, he said to me and another person, he made this comment after this other person left the room. He was extremely well dressed. He had to have $3,000 to $4,000 worth of clothes on and shoes. I mean, just an amazing thing, right? And he says, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. My shoes cost more than his entire ensemble. And he believed it. That's what he said. And he believed it. My shoes cost more than his entire ensemble. What does he know? It's stunning, man. It's absolutely stunning. So you can't transfer value through status externally. You can try, but when I take your shirt off, you just got skin showing like everybody else. It can't give you lasting value. So what's going on? What's going on? What's the hint here? What's going on? See, simply owning a designer label is not going to cut it for you. It can give you temporary or perceived value, but it doesn't last. And it does project inferiority on those who don't. And that's one way to have perceived status. That's why there's such a thing as a corner office. The celebrity CEO of the last 20 years is absurd. Now, you have a great CEO, a great leader, but the 455 people that work for you made those dreams and visions happen, not you by yourself. But who celebrated on the cover of Fortune? Mr. So-and-so, Ms. So-and-so. This is what status does. Perception-based truth. The material confers value to the immaterial. That's the idea. That's what it's all about. And using words and pictures in the advertising business, we know how powerful they are. I forgot to make this projection, so I'll have to show it to you on paper. I used to hold this up bigger than this. And the caption said, this is a painting of some birds flying over a field. And I asked the students at the college, when I used to give talks at colleges on this, what do you think this painting is worth? They said, I don't know, just some birds flying over a field. I don't know, what is it worth? A couple $100 maybe, at tops, if you really liked it? Then I held it up again, or showed the projection, and I said, This is the last painting Vincent van Gogh painted before he died. How much do you think it's worth now? Millions. Did I change the painting? No. Did I make it bigger? No. It's exactly the same size. All I did was add words. What are the words? Vincent van Gogh painted this the last time he ever picked up a brush before he died. What do you want to give me for it? Changes everything. Don't be fooled. Words in advertising and marketing and branding make a difference. And they can sway people very quickly. Here's a quote from a young gal at a college talking about fashion and all this stuff. Social status, wearing designer clothing aligns you with an elite group who can afford it. People who wear designer clothing recognize designer clothing. They can also recognize cheap clothing. When you are wearing a juicy couture dress, you appear wealthier and of higher social status than others. And who doesn't want others to be insanely jealous of your clothes? There's a future leader of something. I'm scared too. Yeah, it scared me too. But this is what's happening. Now I'm going to get into some bad stuff. You're not going to like this. The branding process doesn't start with material things alone. Watches, shoes, cars. That's only the beginning. It's permeating something else now. And my question is, are we branding God? Look at these logos. Assemblies of God, all the gospel. Catholic Church, Anglican Church, Reformed Episcopal, Methodist, Reformed Catholic Church, the Episcopal Church, United Methodist Church, the Methodist Episcopal Church. First Congregational, Mennonite Church, First Baptist Church, not this one, the whole organization, Metropolis of Atlanta. I mean, collar, tie, no collar, monk's robe, cross, no cross. Every one of these logos stands for a brand. Now, don't get mad at me, it's a fact. And what do I mean by that? Well, if I go back, how do I do that? Okay. If I go back, some of these say, if you don't speak in tongues, you're not a Christian, or if you don't speak in tongues, maybe you're not fully a Christian, but you'll get there. Others say, you have to be immersed in baptism. Some say, well, no, you don't. You have to be immersed as an adult. Well, no, you don't. When I did a study of the early church some years ago, it took 7 years of my life to study the early church. And I made a phone call. I live in Southbury. I made 7 phone calls to 7 churches within 20 miles of my house. And I talked to the pastor on the phone. I said, I'm thinking about visiting your church, but I have a couple quick questions about the tenets of your faith. He said, sure, what? I said, tell me, what does baptism mean in your church? How valuable is it? Is it important? Do I need to do it? I called 7 pastors. And I'm telling you the truth, since it's a truth conference. Do you know I got 7 different answers? 7 different on a tenet of the church? Baptism? What does this tell you? Well, when you think about this, this is branding. 33,000 distinct Protestant denominations in 238 countries. That comes from World Christian Encyclopedia. I think every 10 years they do this. 33,000. And every one has a brand of its own. And here's one right on the web. This church not only says they have a brand, they have a category navigated page. Our brand. You like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches? You come here. You like roast beef? No, come over here. And I think that we have inadvertently begun, and probably well into it, branding God this way. And here's a thought from John Blake, Faith and Values. Religion has become a product just like everything else. Churches become brands because brands are quick pieces of information that people don't have to think about, but they can identify with. Marketing and evangelism are the same thing. A product becomes a part of a user's personality, and the user of the product becomes an evangelizer of that product. Faith and Values, church's campaign isn't subtle, but it's personal. Some of the earlier speakers said it. I like it. I like that. I'll go there. I like the peanut butter and jelly sermon. It makes me feel good. I'll go here. I like the idea of being able to throw my hands up. I'll go here. See, it's all about I. You get the I. I think, I feel, I want, I need. I. You know, I don't know about you guys, but I'm a little disappointed in God in this regard. I've been a Christian about 30 years. And you know, in all that time, he's never, ever sent me an email or a phone call and asked me my opinion about anything. 30 years. You would think, come on, could you ask me something? Never once has he asked me for my opinion. Never once. And yet, I've got all these ideas about what God says and what he doesn't say. What is truth? Do you think people are confused for no reason? They're confused because we're confusing them. And I think the church is at a great dilemma. Because one church treats you one way, another church treats you another way. One says you have to be baptized, one says it's okay to be baptized, one says you should be baptized. You should think about being baptized. Well, which is it? Baptism is part of salvation. Jesus said, he's got the word and in the conjunction where he said, well, yeah, but that and doesn't mean and. There's 5 real scholars here. They included me, which I thought was so cool. I took a picture of the slide. I said, next time someone argues, I say, wait a minute, pal. Take a look at that. See, it says 6 scholars. I'm one of them. Huh? Thank you. It's branding. See, it's just part of me. I can't help it. You know, it's just. I couldn't hear him. B2, beautiful and brilliant. You know, I don't want to make light of it because it really is a terribly serious subject. I certainly don't have a solution for it, but I'm telling you, one of the reasons people are not attracted to Christianity, at least one reason, is because they don't know who to believe. I called 7 pastors and couldn't get the same, not there were variations, but enough that they were different. And I said, well, wait a minute. This is a real problem. And it has to do with branding. I'm going to go into the last few minutes on this. Let's see, I'm at 30 minutes. I got about 5 minutes. So I said earlier, this is about you, the truth about who are you? Do externals really convey your value? Who does God say you are? See, this is all about identity. Truth versus deception. And deception is a perceived truth. But you look at these verses. Genesis, we're made in his image, in his likeness. He chose us before the foundation of the earth. Do you want to talk about value? Ephesians, by grace you have been saved through faith and not of you. He came after you. He's relentless. You got to have value. Why would he come after you if you had no value? Because his image is in you. He's invested in you. That's the truth. A man's gifts will make a way for him and place him before great men. These verses take you back from the discount rack and put you back in supermodel status, my friends. These truths. You want to get a headache? Psalm 130. Look at this. For you were created in the inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. Do you understand the intricacy of these words? Knit me or weaved me, you might say. Weaved me in my mother's womb. Do you have any idea the implications of the detail that implies? I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know them full well. My frame was not hidden from you. How you like chocolate? Because God gave you the like for chocolate. My frame was not hidden from you. He knows everything that he put in you. When I was made in a secret place, only God knows the depth of who you are and your value. When I was woven together in the depths of the earth, your eyes saw my unformed body. Listen to this. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them even happened. You have value. You don't need a brand label to give you value. You don't need a particular kind of car. You don't need someone to tell you you're smart or you're good or you're beautiful. You are all those things because Jesus gave you all those things. You don't need advertising to tell you that. You don't need a certain kind of clothes or a certain kind of country club or a certain kind of anything because you already have all those things. And you don't want to sell it back to the devil again. He's already did that once. Get off the discount rack and get back to supermodel status and make a change in the world. Human creativity is the ultimate solution resource for this entire planet. And you have that on some level in some particular way. We are walking, talking spiritual warehouses of solutions for this planet. Christians are the ones that are supposed to be solving these problems. You're moaning about bad movies? Well, go make some good movies. You're tired of bad books? Go write some good books. You stinking lousy art? Go make some good art. Go get in the game. Go compete with these people. Just like the, on campus. They're competing with the enemy. Don't moan and groan and complain. Go compete. You got so much stuff to bring to the world. You can never use it all in your lifetime. Never. Down to 2 minutes. The truth, personal success is imprinted in every human being by God. Look at the Garden Initiative. Fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, rule it. Animals can't do that. Only you and I can do that as brothers and sisters. If you're not sure who you are, I'm going to leave you with this. Study Numbers 14:21. Surely as I live, says the Lord, all the earth will be filled with my glory. And that ain't rays of light. My glory, that's his presence. The word means presence. He wants to be present in the world. He's not going to do it through frogs and toads and camels. He's going to do it through human beings, men and women and young people who know better. That's how he's going to bring his presence. That's your mission. That's your purpose. That's your goal. That's why you have gifts. That's why Psalm 139 tells you that you've been made in a particular way, because you have a mission to fulfill. You have a destiny, and it has nothing to do with brands or anything extra. Are you awake out there? Yeah. This is what the world is trying to tell us, and the world is wrong. God bless you.